What's up, everybody? You're tuning in to Redeem Podcasts. I want to say thank you to all our guests and listeners who've shown us support and love through the years. We love you and pray you're blessed through this fellowship. On today's episode, we have Lucas Salazar, one of my good friends in ministry. Lucas is a manager for the Whosoevers, a Christian movement, and serves as a drummer on the Calvary Chapel Golden Springs worship team. All of this while being a husband and a father. We had an insightful conversation about Lucas's upbringing, the foundation of a Christian walk, and serving the youth. We hope you enjoy this, and if you would like to support this podcast, you can do so by sending a gift donation through the Zelle application to redeemedchurchf@gmail.com. Check this out. Dude, what you been up to, Lucas?
I was just telling. What was your name again, bro?
Mikey.
Mikey. So Mikey. Okay, I gotta remember.
Yeah, I'm Mikey Sanchez, dude.
Mikey Sanchez.
Yeah.
I've heard your name before, bro.
Yeah, I know like a lot of the people at Golden
That's
Springs.
what I'm saying. Did you used to go there? To
Yeah,
Golden
for
Springs?
13 years, dude.
That's a good while.
Yeah. It's a lot
I taught New Thirst there
Okay.
for a season. I taught U-Turn for Christ there.
Oh, okay, sick.
I went with Ryan Israel.
Gotcha.
For a season, I was like helping out the Whosoevers.
Yeah.
Like back in the day.
Okay.
And dude, I love. I would say all my discipleship and growth came through Golden Springs. You know, Pastor Rawl was like my first pastor ever. He still is.
That's
you
dope.
know, other than here, I'd say
Yeah.
I'd say God's really done a work bringing me here.
That's cool, man. So that's like what jump started your faith, basically, like going to Golden Springs and getting plugged in there. Or
No, I would say that. Okay, so I don't.
No, it's fine.
When I was a kid, like my mom got cancer
Okay.
and she went into the closest church we could find. We were Catholics, but the closest church that was open was a Christian church, and it was in West Covina, and it was called Calvary Chapel West Covina,
Gotcha.
and that was Pastor Raul Reese back in the like 90s.
Oh shoot.
So when I was 7, we went there. Family was Catholic, but you know, my mom was a woman of faith. She read the Bible, and when we went in there, there was an altar call, and at 7, I went up,
Yeah.
and so, but I never really got like plugged into church. Like my mom battled cancer most of my young life. She would go into remission and would come back. She would go into remission and would come back. And then when I was 18 and I was like living in the world completely, I was getting like super fed up with life. And at some point I became like suicidal, and I was just dealing with depression
Yeah, I get
and
it.
stuff like that. And then my brother Johnny started going to church at Golden Springs, and it was the same pastor years later in Diamond Bar. So my brother actually was going and walking with the Lord before me, and he would tell me like, "Dude, why you're running?" Like I'll be like, "I'm not running." Like, "Yeah, you are, dude. You're running."
Yeah.
So then, basically, I gave my life to the Lord one night. Instead of killing myself, I was like, I don't want to run no more, you know. And then that's when I went and got plugged into the young adults ministry there at Golden Springs. My brother Johnny was going there, and he told me about it, and I felt like, let me just check this out.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's a guy named Merritt Robinson, black dude, really cool dude. To this day, I'm friends with him. He was at my wedding, and he just treated me like family, like straight up. And so I go there, and then he'd be like, "You got to come Sunday mornings, bro." And
Yeah.
I'd come Sunday and hear Raul teach. And to me, that was crazy because it was the same voice, same dude since when I was 7. So I started going there, and then, you know, without telling the whole lengthy story, like I gave my life to the Lord and still struggled with sin for the first 2 years of my life because my ex-girlfriend would always come to my window or whatever, and I just was like a sucker, like for
Yeah, dude.
sin, you know. And I remember one night, like after just, I'm sure you've met people like this, like they're dabbling in their old lifestyle, like, and that those are their people, like that's their friends, that's their world, that's the people they love, and And then on Sunday, if they're in that transition, like they're coming to church, or Wednesday they're going with new friends or people that they're going to church with, and then it's like you want to go up and get saved every time. Like they give an altar call, you want to get saved again because you feel like garbage.
Bro,
You just exactly, you feel like garbage. So I was in that place for 2 years, probably like a slave to sin, but like in love with Jesus, but still just like enslaved. And then I remember one night, dude, just on the side of my bed, just asking God to just make a change. And my ex-girlfriend came knocking on my window, and I just was like, I felt like I was hiding from her. I was like on the floor on the side of my bed, and I was just like closing my eyes. It was like a horror movie scene. And then she just kind of like gave up and left. And that night I was like, oh, just let it be like this forever. And I remember something changed. I was being torn in multiple directions, and I went into Pastor Dale's office, and because he had said I went to a men's study, and he was like, my doors are open, and like he had to eat those words because I was like, well, this guy said his door was open, I was like, hey, this guy said I could come in his office, and they were like, okay, well, Pastor Dale, this, I don't know if you know Pastor Dale, he's pretty hard, bro. And I went in there, and he prayed for me, asked the Lord to give me the gift of the Holy Spirit and to give me gifts. And that night, after he prayed for me, I went home, and the first time I ever had reading comprehension, and I read the whole book of John, and then understood the Bible for like the first time, like clearly. Yeah. And then from then on started just like what I believed to be was like a calling. I was there. I went to pastoral school with Pastor Jesse, who recently passed away. And then I was at the start of a church in Hollywood called Calvary Chapel Hollywood. I was the assistant pastor there for 4 years.
That might be where I know you from.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was assistant pastor there for 4 years. And then COVID came. I left like right before COVID came. But COVID came and the church basically closed down. And then I went through a tough season. I never walked away from the Lord, never went back to vices, but I was married by that point. And, we were having a hard time in our marriage, just feeling like it wasn't what a Christian marriage, all the blessings it should be. I couldn't put my finger on what was wrong. But all I knew is I felt like a failure, bro. I felt like I once had a calling. Like I even got to the point one time where somebody asked me like, hey, I heard you're a pastor. And it came out like I used to be. That was like probably one of the lowest points. And then, but I never lost like love for Jesus. And I just felt like an outcast because I was so, I got to surf with Pastor Rawl. Like Ryan Reese gave me his Harley jacket. Like I rode with Shane Reese. I felt like I was like there. And what I felt like was the greatest caliber of how God could use people's lives. Like I was teaching New Thirst, which to me was like super important, watching people, get right with God who are drug addicted. And I was blown away when the Whosoever first started, made like a connection with Sonny where he would text me on Mother's Day because his mom passed away too. Yeah. And I was like, so I came from like that feeling like it was a catapult into my call in my life. Like I was like, dude, this is the start of like where I'm gonna go, like where I'm gonna end up, like where God's gonna use what I have. And that season where like felt like my marriage was struggling and I was working construction and like the doors started closing after Hollywood. After I left Hollywood, I felt like awkward, like Satan was playing mind tricks in me too. I'd go to church and I just felt like people would be like, hey, some people would, dude, they'd be like, what happened, dude? Like, hey, like, and I didn't know how to answer. Like, I just felt, so fast forward, dude, like, he opens the church here and I just initially just started coming, sit in the back. My wife was at a place she didn't want to go to church.
Just attending, yeah.
And I was just coming by myself. And all I could say, dude, is that God, like, healed my wife, my marriage, like, reminding me that the call of God's irrevocable. The calling became less about looking for where and became more about being who God made me to be, intended me to be. And so here I am, dude. And now,
bro, that's rad,
it's pretty cool, dude. So, I don't know, you know me somewhere, dude. I make music too. Okay. I don't know, like, I still make music with Max over there.
Okay. Is that how you guys got connected through music?
well through the high school ministry at Golden Springs.
I know him since he was in.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that you guys hadn't met because you guys were
I've heard
right
his name
around each
before.
other
I've heard his
for
name
sure.
from Sonny. I've heard his
Yeah.
name from Ryan. I've heard it from like the
funny.
chapel, but I've
Maybe.
never
Yeah.
officially met you. I don't
Yeah.
think.
And I'm not like I want to make it clear. I'm not like no.
You
like,
never heard of me?
no, yeah, I'm
No,
nobody.
I'm
I'm
not
really
getting
nobody,
that
bro.
far.
But yeah, yeah, like I've been around a long time,
Yeah.
you know. So like, yeah.
But that brings up for me a question for
Yeah.
Lucas. I really don't know your entrance into Christianity, into Golden Springs.
dude.
I just met you. You like played drums and said you wanted to be part of worship. So I was like, awesome. We need
Yeah,
drummers,
dude.
you know. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about that.
Dude, that's kind of a funny story too. I remember I was telling somebody, dude, from the worship team. I was like, yeah, you know, I sent the worship pastor. I think at the time it was like Sammy Garcia, Sammy Aceves. And I was just like, yeah, you know, my name's Lucas. I started, you know, going to Golden Spring about like 2 years ago or something, and you know, I'm interested in like checking out your worship team, seeing how it is. And I sent that email, right? And I was kind of nervous because you know, it's been a while since I played worship. I grew up playing worship with my sister. I think I was like 10, dude, when I first started, like in one of my old churches.
What kind of? Just curious, like, were you raised in Calvary or?
You know, I wasn't. No, I was actually raised in. It was in a Pentecostal church. I can't remember the exact name, but I was raised.
You're
in
more
a-
Pentecostal.
Yeah,
okay.
they were more charismatic for
Heck
sure.
yeah.
But so I grew up too, seeing like, you know, all that stuff going on.
I know a lot about that too.
Yeah, dude. So it was a little different. No, I actually I started going to Calvary. It was through the Whosoevers. I got plugged in high school, actually, through Calvary Chapel. I feel like Calvaries are really good at just like putting Christian clubs or like having a pastor go to a club, an existing club. So at my high school,
What high school did you go to?
I went to Canyon Springs, dude. I grew up in the IE. So
Okay.
out there, yeah, Canyon Springs.
That's like
High
where I'm gonna
School.
end up now. Like,
Oh,
it's
really?
funny. Yeah, yeah.
Dude. I'm out there in Mobile. I'm actually still out there.
Oh,
in
you
Mobile.
still in? Yeah, I'm
still
gonna.
out there.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I'm praying about getting a house in that direction.
Dude, that's wild.
yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a lot more budget friendly. The further
what
you
it
go
is,
down, you get bigger square footage for the same amount you're paying for like an apartment. Now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's the blessing about being down there. But yeah, dude. So I was out in Mobile. Grew up in the IE, and I was going to this Pentecostal church. Then I was in high school. Calvary had a Bible club at my school. And then basically I started going there, right? And I'm like, okay, this is cool. You know, I like it. I'm learning. And then I had a friend. He was my age. You might know him, Alex Goody. He goes to Calvary Chapel Mobile.
sure.
He's like a young dude.
Maybe.
I think he's a youth pastor down there. But he went to my high school
Okay.
with me. So I think he's the one who initially invited me. And I started going. And at the time, I was going with my friend / like soon to be girlfriend at the time. Now she's my wife, but I was going with
Okay.
her. I was going with her.
I'm
to
glad the story ends with like,
Yes.
that's the girl you ended up
yes,
with.
that's the
you
girl
know?
I ended up with. So we started going to this Bible study, right? And we both like it. And then I ended up graduating, and I started going to the community college right there, Moreno Valley Community College, and they have their apologetics pastor. He's like leading like a Bible club on campus. So I started going there and just kind of like listening to him, and I was like, okay, this is cool, man. Like, you know, it's cool to know like why you believe what you believe, and just breaking down all the faith and everything. Especially being in college, man, people are just like really open-minded, or they want to be open-minded. That's kind of like the agenda they push on you. So going to this Bible club, it was cool because like you get to meet all the people who are going to your college who are like serious about the word. And then that guy, he was a pastor at Calvary too. His name was Pastor Mark. So I found out one day, I think like the Whosoevers were gonna be like there. And I think that was like before they were like really doing stuff. It was like them sharing their testimonies, right?
Okay.
Like Ryan. I didn't know who Ryan was. I just saw like this sketchy looking dude, and I was like, okay, this guy looks cool. He fits the flyer.
Uh-huh.
And then Sonny was gonna be there, Lacey and Head, and I knew who they
so
were.
that era, the Red
Yes,
W era.
The Red W
Yeah.
era, dude.
Yeah.
Because I grew up, dude, just playing music. I played the drums. I would listen to like rock music. I listened to Sonny and Lacey and all of them,
Sure.
so I knew who they were. And I was like, you know, I'm gonna check this out, see what it's about. And I ended up going there and just hearing their testimonies. I was just like, man, that's cool that there's like people like in the industry who like love God. And then for me too, like back then I was a youngster, dude. I was in high school, just graduated, started going to college, and I was like, you know, I really want to pursue this music thing, because I've always thought about it, you know, playing in just like different bands, some little local metal bands and stuff. and that was kind of like something I really wanted to do. But looking back, I know, like, you know, if I would have done that at that point, like, I definitely just would have went downhill. Yeah, God definitely saved me from that. But that's how I got plugged in with the Whosoevers, and then that's what kind of brought me to Calvary Chapel, Golden Springs, when they were having their Friday nights.
Oh, yeah.
I would go down there, right? And before, like, I feel like it was cool. Like, I was hearing the word, but there was like a slight little sense of like you're going because of the hype. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it was dope. It was dope to be there.
It was a cool vibe. It was cool to be there. There was a lot of people who, you know, listened to the same stuff you did. And yeah, the vibe was really cool. And I started bringing my friend Samuel. I think you know Samuel.
Yeah.
He plays the guitar. He sings. I started bringing him with me, and I was like, dude, this place is tight. And then we would go Friday nights. We would just, like, you know, make it a thing. And then finally, like, after 2 years of just going back and forth, dude, for Friday nights, I was like, you know what? I think I want to start, like, checking out Sundays and seeing, like, how the teaching is. Because at that point, God was already working on me through going to the Bible club. I was going to the young adults over at Calvary Chapel Mobile. And I was getting fed. So I was, like, you know, listening to the word. And I went on a Sunday, and I was just like, dude, this is crazy, man. Like, I feel like I've never heard the word the way I'm hearing it, just, like, broken down. And just, like, everybody was really inviting, too. I mean, it's always sketchy, too, like, when you go to a new spot, and you're like, I don't know anybody here.
Feel like an outcast.
It's a different city. I didn't grow up in Diamond Bar. You know, I grew up in the IE. It's a little more ghetto out there, I feel like, than Diamond Bar. So
sure.
It was just a different vibe, but...
Now, at this point, I'm just curious with the way you're laying it out.
Yeah.
I see, like, man, the Lord was with you. You were growing up. That's very different from, like, a guy like me who grew up in church, but I was so far in my high school, early college years from the Lord. And was that for you? What had you there? Like, because for me, it wasn't until I was, like, broken because of what the world and I allowed myself to indulge in. But you seem to be just walking with the Lord.
So that's how I got plugged into Calvary. So before that was a little different for sure.
Okay.
So there was definitely, like, me. I did grow up in the church. I was definitely blessed to have done that. You know, like, my parents, they grew up in the faith. My dad was a Christian. He came from Mexico, and my mom, she came from, like, you know, a family who shared the biblical values, but I feel like maybe they didn't really push into it as hardcore as they should have. But it was definitely there, and they wanted us to know who Christ was and to have our personal relationship with him. So that's when I was going to that Pentecostal church. But throughout that, dude, I did dabble, man. I grew up homeschooled, so I was homeschooled from, like, second to, I want to say, third grade, second to fifth grade or something like that. And then I started going to, like, a charter school. It was like, you know, you go twice a week, and then you just chill at home.
I'm curious about something, bro, real quick.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too lengthy on this, but just from your perspective, I'm not creating, like, a survey by any means, but but do you feel like being homeschooled kind of made, like, a bit more of a romance in your mind about the rock star lifestyle? Like, you're like, man, I'm like, it's almost like that mid-state kid feeling, you know, where you're like, you're way far away, and it just feels so glamorous to be, like, in the do you think that was catapulted a bit by being homeschooled and separated, or do you think that's just your personality type, and even if you were in school you would have been about that?
I think definitely my personality type, but even with that, dude, being said, it was kind of like a different vibe, because, like, I was homeschooled up until, like I said, I think fifth grade. But my mom was like, you know what? Like, the homework's starting to get harder, yo. Like, you need to go to...
you need a teacher.
I
got you.
So she started looking for different avenues. She looked up this, like, charter school in, like, Riverside, and then I went there. So it was like I had that connection, and just ironically enough, that charter school, it started off, like, being, like, a really well-known school, and then they started sending, like, all the bad kids from, like, Mobile and, like, other spots.
I see.
So, like, all of that stuff was there, too.
Became a bad school.
Yeah, it became a school where, like, you know, people were getting high in the restroom.
Oh, I see.
I think I had, like, a science teacher, dude.
Plus, you're in the IE, and there's a lot of that around.
Exactly,
for sure. I know
bro.
what's up with that, yeah.
But, dude, even it got to the point at that school, I had, like, a science teacher, and she has, like, a crazy story of being abducted, right? And she has, like, a glass eye, like, has no taste, no smell.
Like, kidnapped, abducted?
Yeah,
or
dude, she got abducted. And
I was
like,
wondering if it was
she got
alien.
abducted and shot, like, some crazy story, dude.
Wow.
And she got, like, left for dead. But she ended up surviving and became a science teacher.
That's gnarly.
But she
Gnarly.
had no smell and she had a glass eye, so all the kids who would sit like on the left side of the class, they'd be getting high in class. And
Oh my god, the left side.
yeah, dude. They're like, she can't see
She
us.
can't even see us. She can't see past the bridge.
So that's what happened at that school. So I saw a lot and experienced a lot at that school. And dude, I feel like even me just like being in a relationship, I got in a relationship young. Like I think it was like I want to say like 14 or 15, and it was like an intimate relationship. So that kind of like was definitely like a war for me because like I'm over here going to church, right? This Pentecostal church.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, I grew up in the playing music, so I was in the worship team with my sister. You know, she's singing, playing the guitar, I'm playing the drums.
Oh, for sure.
And then there's this battle going on.
So you
bro.
got
I'm a
you got
youngster.
saved like 100 times, you know what I
Bro,
mean?
yeah. I was like you, bro. Heck yeah, just going up to the altar call all those times. But yeah, man. So there was
That's very poisonous in your concept of God because like you latch on heavy to grace, but in an unhealthy way because you're being taught that God's gracious and you're in such desperate need of God's grace, like all of us are.
Yeah.
But there's a morphed thirst for it because you're in debauchery. So like you can blind yourself to obedience and like hit the NOS button towards grace and really cheapen the grace in a way. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I remember being a fornicator and chasing God and really like trying to ignore obedience by being like, God's gracious, like he knows my heart, like he knows I want to do what's right, you know, and it took like the Lord had to like strip me back to the bottom line to build me up the right way so that my interpretation of grace wasn't tainted from like what I was doing. Like
for sure.
The double-minded man is unstable, right? The Bible tells us so. I feel for young kids. I think there's a lot of them out there, dude, especially today with the access of pornography and with how much I heard from a young lady recently, really young lady, like I was like, hey, you don't have a boyfriend? She was like, well, honestly, why break someone's heart? You know, like I'm just trying to mess around right now. And I was like, whoa, like
that's a crazy mentality.
yeah, like for a young girl that's like the reason why like her like lustful desire outweighed her desire for love. And usually young girls are really like, oh, I want a boyfriend. Like and the world we live in right now, it's very, you know, that way. So anyways, I don't want to derail. Forgive me. I have a tendency to like really dive
No,
deep
you're
into
good,
like
bro.
branches off the main tree. You know what I mean? So we'll get back to the main tree. So you're this kid who like, you're in a relationship. No kid's got enough self-control, right? In a relationship where there's opportunity to fall.
Totally, dude.
And then you're like you're raised in church culture, so your meter of the conviction is really numbed because you've seen it, right? When you grew up in church, you don't cry every time people get saved because you've been seeing people get saved since you were a little kid. You know, the person that just got saved, or maybe even your parents' cases, you know, they came from a sinful world and they got to know Jesus. He's the new love. So watching Jesus do his thing and save people is just, it's tugging at the heart and it's praiseworthy and it's genuine. But when you're raised in it and you're kind of like twiddling your thumbs and you're asking if you could like, you know, what we're going to eat after church while people are getting saved,
dude.
you know, and then the new love for you because you're raised in the church being the normal love, which to your parents, they're raised in non-church, and then Christ is the new love. But for you, you're raised in church, and that's the old love. The new love for you is lust, like intimacy, like, dude, never tasted this before, never had this before. So it's like, and I feel like that's a trap that so many young people fall into that are raised in the church, and their parents almost feel, as well scriptured as they are, they're almost ill-equipped because to them, it's backwards. It's like, why aren't you loving Jesus? Like, look how amazing this is. And it's like, if the kid could communicate, he would say, it's amazing to you because it's new to you. Like, right? For me, it's old. Like, I've been hearing it my whole life, and this is new. Like, the way this girl looks in my eyes or the way, you know? So anyways, bro, like, sorry, Sal.
No,
like,
that's some cool insight, man.
Yeah,
I'm
like,
tracking.
so I'm curious though, like, keep tracking with your story. So you're in a relationship.
Yeah. So I'm going to church. I'm in the worship team, but then there's like this battle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, like I'm in the church, bro. Like I have conviction and I know like what I'm doing, I shouldn't be doing, but yet I'm still doing it. So then it's like this routine, right? Because just to kind of go piggyback off of what you said,
Yep.
it's like I think my relationship at that point with Christ was definitely more of like a routine, right? My parents' routine, though. Like you do this, we go to church Sundays, you play on the worship team, and that's just what it is. So like a personal relationship and me like actually developing like that feeling and that want to do like to do church and to really dive into the gospel, it just wasn't there, I feel like. So I was doing it more to like please and impress my parents, and because that's, like you said, that's what I know to be the truth because I'm growing up in it.
Sure.
And then now this other thing comes along the side and I'm like, okay, this thing is like different. I
Yeah.
never saw this. And I just like dive full on into that. But even during that time, dude, like it's crazy because if I felt like that relationship was forever, but it was only like 6 months.
That's funny how
But
that
6
is,
months
yeah.
just felt like, dude, it felt like 6 years, bro. Just like all the stuff I was getting into. But there was a point in that relationship, and I would say like at the 4-month mark, where I was like, okay, I know that what I'm doing, I shouldn't be doing. And like I knew enough in the Bible that I was like, okay, well, if you pray to God and you pray for God to remove something in your life, then, just calling him by his word, like you call out to God, he's going to help you out. So I prayed to God. I was like, hey, God, I pray that if this girl's not for me, that you just take her out of my life.
Dang, how old are you?
Dude, I was 14, yeah.
For a
Wow.
14-year-old to have
14.
that maturity, that's pretty
Yeah.
incredible, bro.
I was 14,
You know,
dude.
kudos to your parents, bro. I think they might have done a really good job with just being really in love with the Lord enough for you, for a 14-year-old to be able to ask God that, dude.
Dude, it was intense, man. I don't know if I heard it at a study or, or like what happened, but I was like, all right, God, like, I'm gonna pray this girl out of
That's
my life.
encouraging.
And so yeah, like, if anybody's listening and they're just like dabbling with stuff like that, man, like just that's like one of the first things you can do. Like you're in a situation you can't pull yourself out of. So, call out to God. There's power in the name of Jesus. So, hey, like, God, pull me out of this situation.
That
But
is
that's
encouraging,
That's
man.
what I did, bro. So I did it. And, dude, I swear, like, I'm not even joking. Like, literally the next day, like, I get a text message that it was kind of like, I think we got in an argument. And it was like, well, maybe we shouldn't be together. Like one of those arguments, you know? And then I took it. I was like, all right, cool. Like, maybe we shouldn't be together.
Maybe we shouldn't. Bye.
So, so I think there was like a week that we were like broken up, and then she hit me back up, and we ended up getting back together.
Of course.
So like those stop signs were there, bro. But like I ran them, and I prayed, and I knew God answered, and He took her out of my life. But I kind of didn't want her to leave yet because I was still like, in lust.
Yeah.
And so I was with her another 2 months, and then the same prayer, bro. I was like, all right, this time I'm for real. So I said the same prayer, and same thing happened, dude. She got taken out of my life, and I ran with it.
Wow.
I ran with it, and at that point, like my dad was searching for a new church. Like I said, my dad's Hispanic. He speaks Spanish, and all this time he was going to a English Christian church for us, so we could understand. But for him, he understands a lot better in Spanish.
Sure.
So we're looking for a new church, and it's like down the street, dude. And there's a Spanish church that's like bilingual. So he's like, hey, come check it out with me. And for me, like at that point, I just got out of this like relationship. I don't really feel like doing good too much yet because like although I had the consciousness to like pray her out of my life because I knew she was bad for me, there was still something that was like warring inside of me where I was like, I'm not ready to fully commit and be good yet. I still want to mess around. So I go to this church with my dad. And, I listened to the pastor, had no idea what the heck they were saying because they never taught me Spanish, right? I know enough to get by. Like, I understand more now. I feel like that.
That's like
I relate,
that's like,
yeah.
I'm like that too.
Same.
So I'm like, okay, cool. Like, did you like the church? He's like, yeah. And then for me, dude, like I get there and I go to the youth group or whatever, and I just see like a bunch of beautiful girls, dude. Like it's a Hispanic church, and I'm like, oh, all right. Like I mean, if you want to go to this church, I'm not.
I'm
against
down,
it.
Dad. I want you to know I support you.
So that's kind of what happened, bro. And the family ends up going there, and kind of fast forwarding a little bit. That's where I met my wife. So we were just really good friends before. I think for like a year. And she kind of seen me too, just like the change in me, because I was a big flirt back then, dude. I think I was talking to like like 5 of the girls or something like that from the church. Like, she
Couldn't
was like,
even understand them, but
dude,
you were
I
talking
know.
to them.
Exactly. She was like, yeah, you had like a schedule. Like they would, because I got caught up or whatever. And they were like, yeah, you would call so-and-so at 12 and then so-and-so at 3.
Oh, wow.
So
funny.
I was doing that for like a little bit, maybe like a couple weeks or something because it's a lot of work. And then,
Yeah.
and then I ended up just, becoming really good friends with my wife. And then we started going to school together. So like I was telling you guys, I was homeschooled. I was going to that charter school. And I think it was my, junior year, I want to say, is when I started, like, I asked my mom, I was like, hey, are you down to, like, if I just go to this school, like, right by the house? Because we were driving to Riverside, dude. My sister was driving me. She was older than me. And there's literally a school right by my house, walking distance, public school. So I just asked her, and she's like, yeah, you could try it out or whatever. So, like, they're putting in the transfer paperwork and all that stuff. And then for me, like, halfway through, I'm like, I kind of don't want to do it anymore. Like, I see my friends in public school, and they got all this homework. And for me, like I get everything done, like, in 3 days, and then I'm chilling. So I kind of didn't want to do it anymore. But she's like, it's too late. Like, I already did the paperwork.
You're in.
So you're in. So my last 2 years, I went to Canyon Springs, which is where my wife was going. So we're going to church, hanging out, walking to school together. And, like, right when I started talking to her, dude, her parents were going through, like, something, like, in their relationship. Her dad was not a believer. Her mom was, and she's the one who brought them to that church because her neighbor was a believer and would always minister to them. So she brought them to that church. And then I started going there, and we just got really close. And then it got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to ask her out. So I asked her out. And we dated for like a day, but I was still like warring, dude. I was like, I want to do bad. I don't want to do good yet. And then I see my wife like just pursuing this relationship with God, and she's just like all in, dude. And I'm like, if I get in this relationship with her, like I know I'll probably cheat on her. So I broke up with her the next day, and then I was like, because I don't want to like do that to her. If I'm gonna be with her, I want to be with her because I love her, and we're gonna do something serious. So I broke up with her, and she took it kind of hard because she thought we were like really good friends and something was going to, become of that relationship. And then we're walking home one day, dude, and she just tells me like, it's okay. Like, all the guys do this to me. Like, they're just like only looking for one thing or whatever. And just something that she said specifically really like hit me. And I was like, dang, like, are you like every other guy, dude? Or are you just like this scumbag who like jumps around to like different girls or whatever? And it just really made me think, man. So, like, for 2 weeks, I'm just, like, thinking about, like, okay, do you really want to run, like, as far as you can from God and just, like, jump into every sin that you never experienced? Or do you want to just forget about that and pursue this relationship with Christ? And at this time, I'm, like, 16. So, I just prayed, dude. I was like, all right, God, well, if you want me to pursue you, I'm going to pursue you. And, if you want me to be with this girl, then it's going to last. So 2 weeks later, I hit her up at school. And she was all mad, dude. She was avoiding me because I broke up with her.
Yeah.
And I used to walk her to, like, her classrooms and everything. And she was like, nah, don't walk with me. So, like, I approached her, and I told her, I was like, so you still single? And then she was like, well, you broke up with me, so, yeah, I'm single. And from there, dude, we just started dating, and then we never broke up ever since. We were 16, got married at 21, and had a baby at 29.
Wow.
How old are you,
That's
bro?
pretty crazy.
I'm 30. I just hit 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so your daughter's or
son.
your son?
Yeah, I got a son, Zion. He just hit 16 months. He's gonna
Oh,
hit
dang,
16
little
months,
one.
yeah. He's small, dude.
Man. That's a crazy testimony. Well, for me, I could relate.
Yeah.
My one of my idols was lust. One of my idols was women, and God used that to get me to a breaking point in my life when I first got saved. And it's just kind of interesting how I can relate to some of the things you were saying. But for me, it was as soon as I tasted that nectar of, I remember when I first had sex, I was 16 years old. It was with this girlfriend I was dating at the time. And that was when I first knew, okay, I'm not really a Christian.
Yeah.
Like, I was growing up in the church. I can't say I had a personal relationship with Christ. I knew a lot because I was growing up at Golden Springs. But then when I tasted that fruit, all of a sudden I had complete understanding of, I almost felt like Adam and Eve in the garden at that point.
Yeah,
like,
dude.
oh, like this is what's out there. Okay, then I knew for myself I wasn't
I wasn't right. I was like, okay, like it's official. Like I'm not even gonna try to pursue Jesus or Christianity. Like this is like the new path for me. And I did it secretly. You know, I just stayed on that path for a while. And people make bad idols or bad gods, right? So I was like you said, it was those 6 months for you. It seemed like forever.
Yeah.
Same thing. I dated this girl for 9 months, and in that 9 month span of time, the infatuation level was like just ramped up, and I think it really can be unhealthy, even just in normal life. Like I think we're supposed to have that place of what is our fulfilling our life is Jesus, 100%. Because people make bad gods, but when you're walking with the Lord, of course, the Lord brings alongside you that helpmate to help you in pursuing the Lord and all those things. But man, I relate to, but the good thing about you was at least you were, when you were 14 and 16, able, conscious enough to be like, nah, this isn't, this isn't the path for me. I was like, goodbye, and it was worse for me. I had to really get broken and dove into a bunch of other things that have left scars and scar tissue throughout my life that I've had to completely just, Lord, help me with these things. I had no idea, your background on that. So that's kind of interesting to see, like, the Lord take you through that. And then when I met you, dude, you just seemed like you loved the Lord, and you were like,
There's something that I kind of want to share because of the variety of people that potentially could listen to this. I hear what you're saying. Like if you feel like, man, for you it was worse, and it was in the way that it was worse. But for you, it was worse in another way, because one of the most devastating things that a Christian can experience is lukewarmness. That's one of the most devastating to who you are, to your concept of who Christ is. It's an opportunity for Satan to really twist up your mind, because you are loving Jesus and you're a failure and you're fake. And the way that Satan can pin a person down with being a fake could be devastating into their adulthood as Christians, because what happens is once you simultaneously exist in Christ and the world, it's easy to go back to that. And there's so many grown men, this from people in your life and people that you minister to, that they'll slip into pornography within their Christianity and their marriages, or they'll slip into hidden sins or hidden things because the concept of walking with Jesus in purity has been tainted. And I only share that because for us, especially growing up, I think we came from not just that parents got saved and then we were in church, but I think we come from a generation that Christianity was new to our parents' generation. Even kids that weren't raised in church, there was a lot of people their parents' age who were like in love with Jesus. They were opening churches, starting ministries. You look at when Praise Chapel started, when Victory Outreach started, when Calvary Chapel started. When you look at the age group of people that it drew them in, and they came in, right? And then they were going to church, and then they took their little kids. And those little kids are generally, not all of them, are in a lot of our age bracket, your age bracket. And there's a missing piece here, bro, that really burdens my heart, because I see what the parents were trying to do, your parents were trying to do, your parents were trying to do. And I see that, and I say this maybe to some parents out there, that you can't be your child's Christianity. You can't be it for them. Even if you have them saying the words, singing the songs, lifting their hands, doing all the things that they could see, and they feel good in their heart, that mom and dad feel good that they could see their son, oh, he loves Jesus, I could see it, But really, that you're their God in that moment, and they're doing it for you as a parent, and it isn't going to be until they find Christ on their own that it's going to be real, and I just want to point out, I want to give credit to the trial of your endurance, like your like what you've gone through and how hard that was and how hard that lasts. Like even as an adult, you know, you love the Lord, I'm sure of it, with all your heart, you know. But the way Satan will always come whispering, you know, he'll always show up. He'll be like, you know, with whatever little thing he could kind of like, you know, it's like he's got like a race of sins. Like you picture like little, like back in the day when, you know, the little Hot Wheels and you put them on the ramps, they go down by themselves, you know. And Satan's got a race of like sins that are to our liking. And if we block real good against one, he just pushes another little one a little further. And we block real good against that, and he just pushes another one. He's got all these things aimed at us, you know, and whatever one that we're not aware of, that one gets further, whether it's pride, arrogance, whatever, like, you know, worldliness, whatever it is, you know. And I want you guys to know, like, I'm on my knees in prayer, and I want to share this with anybody even listening that have a calling in ministry. Like, dude, we can't just assume that repeating what we heard our parents say or what we hear people say is going to work. Mm-hmm. We have to get on our knees and ask God, Lord, show us how we can introduce these young people to falling in love with Jesus in a way that they're not just learning to mimic us, you know. And my heart kind of breaks for the young version of you. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm listening to your story and I'm thinking of this kid, and he's got enough sense to be like, I want God. Like, he's got church culture around him, good people around him, you know. But like you mentioned earlier, the taste of sin, it's enough for Eve to pull the fruit. It was enough for you, you know, and to turn away, and it was enough for you to, you know, put the face on, you know, and you know, it's just, I think what you're sharing, your story, bro, just brings out so much. And I think, I'm going to say something real quick too, bro, that I think is very important. I want to thank you for your transparency on your story, like the simultaneous Christian, because I think the temptation, especially because you're around testimonies a lot. Yeah. The temptation is to magnify the godlessness and to make it sound like, yeah, I was just crazy. I didn't even care about God. I was just wilding out, sleeping with girls. I had different, you know. And then, but then I came to know Christ, and now it's beautiful. But that leaves so many people behind who are like, well, that's not me. I'm not some freaking crazy drug addict rock star who was out there just smashing and wilding out. I was like a kid who was praying and praising Jesus and loving the Lord, and I was every bit as lost as like the dude out there snorting coke, you know. I was like, my heart was cold, and I did things because it's what people wanted me to do, you know. And we've been talking about this lately, dude, because a person who is kind of on their way to hell is every bit on their way to hell as a person who's really on their way to hell. Like, there's not 5 categories. There's two. There's 2 categories, right? There's heaven and there's hell. And so when you're not on your way to heaven, you're the same as. But there's so many kids who feel left out. They're like, well, if I don't have like this crazy story, I don't have a testimony. So I need to go make a testimony still. You know, like maybe I need to do drugs or have sex, or maybe I need to try out being gay or something crazy. So that's my story. Like, I went and I was doing that, and I would, you know, and now it's, you know, whatever. And it's just not true to glamorize only the duplicity, you know.
Totally, yeah.
You feel what I'm saying?
I feel like a lot of times it's easy to, like, you know, get caught up in that, and you start like maybe not sharing certain things about your testimony because you're like, maybe that's too cheesy.
Doesn't fit in, or yeah.
But like, I feel like we forget, like, the perfect testimony that was given on this earth was the life of Jesus Christ, right? Him living the perfect life, abiding in Christ, and dying on the cross for our sins, not even for stuff that he did. So it's like, that's the greatest testimony of all time. And, you know, like, I feel like in life, you know, like, we just give like the enemy like an inch in our life, and he's gonna take like the whole mile, dude. He's gonna go as far as he can. And that's why I think, just like, you know, to what you were saying, bro, it's like, it's important, man. Just being a Christian, dude, like, and you're in there and you're fighting the fight and you're trying to do good. It's so important, dude, not to get caught up with the fakeness, right? Just like living this lie, like, you know, I'm this Christian, but I'm gonna put on this mask and, you know, just continue on your relationship with Christ like that, because like you keep on playing like church the way you do like that. It's like that becomes your reality of church, and the God's reality of the relationship that He wants to have for you just gets tainted because you're over here putting on this perception, and now that's what you believe. You're like not even following true Christianity. So that's definitely a scary place to be.
Go ahead.
Well,
Yeah, no,
I'm
please.
curious because it kind of it has to do with the youth and just young people coming up. I know you work with them a lot.
Right, that's
I mean,
right.
that's
Yeah.
And I want to know from your perspective, just some insight of like what you've been seeing since you've been involved with the Whosoevers, doing these high school mission trips, high school outreaches. Like what is the state of our youth in the U.S. and Mexico, and are some of the things that the Lord's been showing you through it?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say a big thing, dude, especially now, I feel like even more so after COVID, like you were kind of saying, like the mental health, dude, that is just something that I feel like not even just in the high school, but just overall, but really more amplified in the high schools. Because I mean, you think about it, like during COVID, dude, especially like in these like poorer countries. I mean, even here in the States, but like you're not in school, you're stuck at home, and you know you hear stories of kids getting abused. Yeah. You hear sexually, kids getting abused physically.
I hate to say that there's definitely a lot of that in third world countries. Dude.
Yeah,
Hispanic
bro.
culture. Unfortunately, there's a
It's
lot
big,
of that
man.
too, dude. Yeah.
And then even like, I mean, during COVID, dude, like we went to Montana, right? During, I think it was like 2021. And we went to this juvie there. But most of the juvies, like up there in that specific area, they were like Native Americans because there's a lot of tribes up there. But like the warden was just sharing with us, like, dude, like a lot of these kids, they'll commit crimes to come into jail to avoid from getting abused, like inside of where they're at. Or, you know, they're in jail because they stabbed their stepdad in the eye because he was raping their like younger sister.
Wow.
But now they want to get out because they know that their sister's getting raped
And they can't
can't do anything about it.
That's wild, dude.
So like you hear stories like that, and then like just going back to like being in COVID, right? So these kids, they come from abusive homes, alcoholic dads. There's people getting abused physically, and then just sexually. So they're stuck at home, dude, during COVID for 2 years, right? Schools are shut down, and they're just getting abused daily. That's why like suicide and everything is just skyrocketing because all these kids were enduring all of that stuff throughout COVID. And, you know, seeing their parents bickering, like they're seeing their parents' marriage on Front Street. Now they're home 24/7 when they weren't seeing that stuff before.
There's no like, well, let's finish this later when the kids get home.
Exactly.
We'll stop. And yeah.
So I definitely see a lot of that affecting the kids in the schools. And a lot of them are just battling, dude, with, you know, suicide, depression, self-harm. Which is why for us, dude, we're just like, man, like we're so excited to be able to be back now. Because it was kind of hard for like Cali, man. Cali has so many laws
absolutely.
for us to even come into schools.
I can't imagine what Ryan went through because he's such a like in the trenches kind of guy.
Dude.
Like
Dude,
you get to
even
see
for
that
him,
guy. Yeah.
He was like, you know what? Like we can't just sit idle, you know, just to that point.
Yeah.
He's like, we need to do something. So him coming from the skateboard scene, he's like, dude, there's skate parks in every state all around the world.
I remember that.
So let's do it.
Did you go? Did you go on that?
I went the trip after, but
Okay.
he literally was like, all right, guys, so I'm going to drive up to Idaho. Let's get this graphic made. Let's print some flyers. I'll pass out flyers for a week at all these skate parks every day. And then the next week we'll have our contest, and then like we'll just see what happens. So that's what he did. He went up a week before, passed out flyers every day at all the skate parks we were going to hit, and the word got out. And, dude, God just showed up in crazy ways, man. So it was a really cool thing to be a part of on the back end, just to really get the guys out there, the team to be able to do that ministry. And then coming back and hearing their testimonies on like what happened, you know, God's moving. And it's cool, man. A lot of fruit came from those tours, dude, just with like the young pastors and stuff out there in the areas, and a lot of people just stepping up. So yeah, man, that kind of like opened up a new doorway for us to be able to do ministry too. Was like, okay, cool. Now when we go partner with these churches, like, you know, we'll have somebody speak, we'll hit a high school, we'll like do a best trick contest. And then even like the doors opened up through COVID too. We were in Texas, and one of our friends is just really well connected with his community. and he came from like the hair scene, the music scene, and all of this stuff. So he just like knows a lot of people in his area, and he was like, "Hey, this door open, man, for you guys to go to a bar," and we're just like, "How's that gonna work out, dude? Like, preaching to a bunch of drunk people, like, what's gonna go down?" So
And Ryan's like, oh yeah.
yeah, bro. So that happened, and then I tell Ryan, dude, and he's just like, "Well, let's do it, dude." So I'm like, "All right."
For sure.
So Heads with us from Korn. We have Sonny Sandoval
radical
from
guy
POD.
head, huh?
Yeah, and then we have Ryan, and then so we're just like, all right, well, we'll just advertise it as like a community healing event because everybody's going through stuff because of COVID or whatever.
That's funny.
So the bar was like, yeah, but you guys realize we're gonna serve alcohol, right? And we were like, I mean, like, yeah, it's a bar, right?
Yeah.
So we do it, and we do this event, man. And the whole event, they have like a stage outside. It's like a concert venue in Texas. I think it was like on Bar Rescue or something like that. So it's a pretty decent bar. A lot of foot traffic going through there. And I want to say there was at least maybe 600 to 800 people there, man, that night. And there's a bar on the inside. And then on the outside, there's like a bunch of seating and stuff because they serve food. Dude, there was I think I went to the restroom and there was like one person sitting on the inside at the bar.
Everybody came out.
Everybody was outside, bro.
Super dope.
Listening to these guys' stories, listening to them drop the gospel. And then at the end, we do this altar call at this bar. And then, dude, the whole bar just came up basically. So, we're praying for the people. And even the bands they had open up for the events to kind of draw attention. They weren't Christian bands or anything, but we see them at the altar call and we're just like, dude, this is so sick, man. So even just with that, God opened up that door for that bar. I think we've been to that bar 3 times already. And even our guy out there in Texas just kind of ministering to him, that just opened up the door because he's like, dude, these guys are real. They're about the people. They're not about pushing this agenda. And for him, he sees the way our friend Daniel's living over there. And he's living by his testimony. And, this guy's really getting ministered to through it. So, it's coming to the point where this guy is, texting him. He's like, hey, I want to meet with you today. I got some questions about, Christianity or whatever. So, it's been cool, man, just to be a part of, that and see, God really working through these crazy events from the outside. You're like, dude, whosoever's going to be at a bar? Are they going to be at a skate park? Or, what does this mean?
But that's why I love the whosoever's,
But,
man.
dude,
They'll
God's
go.
doing crazy stuff, bro.
Do you see pushback from the church on doing things like that?
Not from Golden Spring specifically, but a lot of I do see a lot of churches, they kind of, get a little bit nervous about certain things like that because they've never done it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think once they partner with us too, the cool thing is the churches will see dude, these kids are engaged at these high schools or these skate parks, and then they see the altar calls and they hear what these kids are going through.
Yeah.
And they see the fruit from the events, then they just get fired up, dude. That's usually how it is. They'll reach out and they're like, hey, our youth pastor, wanted to get connected with you. We're not too sure if anything's going to come of it, but, let's see what can happen.
Yeah.
Right? So I talk with them. We have, Zoom calls and stuff. And then we end up, planning an event together, and they see it going down. And then we'll even, encourage, other churches in the area who are, they want to get involved, but they don't want to put any skin in the game yet. We'll be like, yo, come and check it out, dude.
Yeah.
We're going to be in your area.
Yep.
And they'll come down, man, and they'll just see, the fruit from the ministry. And they just get fired up, bro. But just to answer your question, yeah, we've seen, people who are a bit skeptical or maybe people who might not be down with it. And that's okay, God will just use them in their arena, and, God will continue to open the doors and put those people who want to come alongside and partner with us in our area. So, yeah, man, we've definitely seen some pushback, but we continue to push forward, man.
There's something I kind of want to say about to the Christians that struggle with that line right there. They're like, okay, I want to be down, people getting saved, but this is a bar, and there's people drinking there.
Yeah.
How do I save face next Sunday on service? By the way, this last week we were at a bar. They're struggling with that.
Right.
But there's something I want to say, and that is the contrast between holiness and unrighteousness, right? So that contrast is more apparent the more holy one is and the more unrighteous the other one is, right? So in other words, what I'm saying is you might be able to be like, oh, a UFC event, we could do that, but we don't want to do, you know, like a tattoo, what's the convention, because there's too much nudity there or whatever. Or we'll be willing to do, you know, this boxing event, but we don't want to do like that bar over there, right? You have people that they'll draw their line based on the level of debauchery versus the level of holiness, right? But what I want to say is there's none more holy than Christ. None. Not even close. And the distance from Christ's holiness to just the most righteous man you ever met is a further distance from the most righteous Christian you know to the cracked out crackhead that you know. So the distance from the holiest man you know to the most cracked out sinner you know is a closer gap than the distance from that holiest man you know and Christ's holiness. Which means for Jesus to even come and step foot with the disciples and with the people on this earth was a bigger step of debauchery, like stepping down into the filth, than any place that me or you have ever been.
Yeah.
So when Christians have this feeling like, oh, I can't, they need to understand that whatever step they're afraid to take, Christ took a bigger step than that. Now, I'm not saying, what I think if they clarified it, if they thought about it, I think what their conviction is that they want to be careful that they're not putting people in places that are going to compromise their walk.
Yeah.
And that is a good thing for them to consider.
Sure.
But that's not what the whosoevers are doing when they're going to these places. The whosoevers aren't going to the local church and saying, hey guys, you should be in the bar.
Yeah.
The whosoevers are thankful to be alongside these people, prayers, asking for prayer, speaking, guest speaking. Ryan sometimes seems to be more effective in a lukewarm church full of people that have all the rules and regulations down, but in their hearts they've grown cold.
Yeah.
He's just as effective in those places sometimes than he is with the lost, even because he's an offense to both of them. He's holy and righteous, and therefore the lost world is feeling convicted, but he's not outwardly holy and righteous enough to be accepted by just the churchy people. So when he goes and speaks to them about your hearts, your Pharisee heart, you know, you've let your heart grow cold.
Yeah.
They're just as flustered as, like, more so than the sinners even, you know what I'm saying? So what I want to say is if you're looking out for your congregation and you're telling them you need to consider where you should or shouldn't be, that's a godly thing because your heart is in protection.
Totally.
But if you're scared to be somewhere because of what people are going to think, then really your eyes are on man instead of doing what God called you to do, because Jesus Christ himself was in a further debauchery situation by just being around prostitutes and freaking tax collectors than any of us will ever be because we were at a bar, right?
Yeah.
And so I make my decisions on where I belong and don't belong based on my weaknesses. And some people just don't have enough honesty in them to be real. Like, if you're an alcoholic, then you'd be like, guys, I'm going to be praying, but I won't be at the bar. Like, that's your choice on yourself because of your own tendencies and weaknesses. Or, you know, I remember there was a gnarly ministry. Ryan knows some of the girls that were, what was her name, dude? I forgot her name, dude. But she had this strippers, like, she was like pulling.
Oh, yeah. Annie,
dude.
Lober, yeah.
Annie Lober, dude, was like pulling girls out of the strip club, but you weren't sending like the dudes.
Bunch of single
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah,
in there.
you weren't gonna send them out there, bro.
The
This
new
is
believer
common
single
sense.
group, yeah.
But for people to have a hard time believing that God was using Annie's life in these dark places, just don't have an understanding of how Christ works. So, anyways, I feel like that's an important subject for some Christians out there. Maybe some Christians have some pastors have some small churches, and they're like, "What am I okay with, and what am I not okay with?" Well, listen, like, you're okay with being like Christ. It's just there's a difference between building up the body and what you do on Sunday morning and Wednesday evening, and as you guide people through the teaching of the Word, and then evangelism. There's a difference between those two things, and people need to understand that you can't cross those things and say, like, you know, the same things that that when Jesus is talking to Jews, it's not the same thing as when he's talking to Gentiles. Same with Paul. Paul goes and visits one group of people. It's a bunch of Jews there. He's telling them that they're all caught in the law. Paul goes and talks to a bunch of Gentiles, he's got to tell them that they got to refrain from the orgies that they were once in, because that's not God's way, and they need to be free from that stuff. So it's not the same message to the Jews religiosity, and then the godless, right, the Gentiles. So it's a different sermon. It doesn't mean that Paul's being, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, anyways. Like,
Yeah, it's like the word stays the same, but the application is just different.
yeah, because of who you're talking to, you know what I'm saying? So I'm all about, I just want to say, bro, like, 100%, and him too, dude.
Yeah.
Like, we're all about what God does through the whosoever's and the uniqueness. I believe like all the edges on Ryan are good for even the people who are like know-it-alls. Like, when they're like side-eyeing at Ryan because of the edginess of him, to me, I'm like, this is good for you, bro.
Yeah.
Like, eat it up. Like, eat it up and look at what God's doing through this man's life, in spite of all the things that you think you know of perfection. Because God he's not looking for perfect vessels.
Yeah.
He's looking for submitted vessels to do his perfect work. He's the only perfect one, you know? And so I'm always blown away, bro. My calling's, I teach mostly believers. I do evangelism through music and stuff like that. But really my gift in the spirit is with believers mostly, like discipleship stuff, conversations with Christians, helping them mature in Christ. But bro, that doesn't mean for a second that I don't recognize the importance and blown away by the gift of evangelism and outreaches and stuff like that. So I'm curious, like, in the years that you've been in Christianity, how do you balance out you growing in your depth because of the time you've been with Christ, and then just the excitement, that nuance of like, dude, God's moving, people are getting saved. Like, do you have that duality in your life of like, man, I like hearing these pastors because they take me to these places where I'm like profound insight to the scripture, but at the same time, like, keeping it simple when I'm outreaching these kids. And you know, Ryan's message oftentimes very simple. So do you deal with those two thoughts, or you're pretty, you know what I mean?
You know, I think it's definitely just like you said, you know, just knowing your audience, man. I know for me, like when I'm doing like a lot more like of evangelism, I'm talking with like, you know, family that are unsaved, or even just like people that I run into, I want to keep it like more practical and simplified, where it's like, okay, like, what are some words that these guys are going to understand? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like without watering down the seriousness of like the topic, but just kind of like basically like putting like pictures, you know what I mean?
Sure,
like,
sure.
Like giving illustrations.
Illustrated,
yeah, for
for
sure.
sure.
So that way they could understand in a more like literal term, rather than like, you know, it says this in like Matthew 5 or whatever.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
the dispensations
yeah,
of freaking
dude.
theology or whatever. Yeah,
But,
yeah.
you know, it's definitely different when you're dealing like with like maybe somebody like who I was, you know what I mean? Like, I'm over here on the worship team, not right now, but like back then I was on the worship team, and you know, I was messing around with my girlfriend sexually at that time. It's like how to talk to those kinds of people, you know.
Do you
people
feel
who
a calling
know.
towards those kids?
You know what? I feel like God's definitely opening the door for me to be more vulnerable and available to talk to people who are going through stuff like that. He's kind of opened the door just organically to talk to people who are hurting in that sense, like they're just dull in the faith, or, you know, they're struggling with X, Y, and Z. So I definitely feel like, you know, like if it's there and God's given you these life experiences and you've learned from them, and you came out strong, then dude, like, by all means, like, God, if you want to throw, you know, whoever my way, like, I'm totally 100% down to be open and available to answer that calling for sure. But at the moment, like, I don't have like an official title or nothing like that. I'm just like, you know, just talking with the homies who are going through it, and you know, people I come into contact with at church, and even just meeting people through the whosoever's, dude, because I do a lot of like the emails, and dude, sometimes like the emails that come in, there's just so many like people who are hurting out there. It's like, bro, like I'm sending them to like all the pastors on staff, but sometimes that's not enough, and I'm just like, all right, dude, like,
Wow.
I gotta jump on like a Zoom call or something and pray for this person. You know what I mean?
Do you ever get a chance to do something
Yeah,
like
for
that?
sure. Yeah,
That's
and,
awesome.
and that's been rad, dude. Even just to that, like, I think yesterday I got an email from this girl in Canada, like last year during COVID. She was just going through it, dude, just mentally, her mental health, and like she didn't really have like a relationship with Christ or anything like that. She was really suicidal, and I was able to jump on a call with her, bro, and just pray for her, and I led her to Christ, dude. You know, she's all the way in Canada. I'm over here in the United States, getting ready to have a baby and all this stuff.
Wow.
So I'm praying for her. She accepts Christ, and she has a crazy story, bro. She like works in like a psych unit and psych unit at the hospital down there, and she talks with kids who are dealing with stuff like that. But then she was battling with all this stuff too.
Oh, absolutely.
Since I think for like 20 years, dude, like that she was dealing with this stuff at a young age. But just recently, dude, she sent me like a link to this video that this like news station or something like that picked up on her, and they did a story about like her life and basically how she came out from that and how she's working in this unit now, and she's using her story to help these people who are struggling, with stuff. So she sent me an email just like encouraging, like, thank you for like, being available. And, even Sunny, she reached out to Sunny. Sunny would pray with her. So just like seeing like the openness of the people, like I feel like it's easy for people to put people who are influential like on these pedestals where they're like unobtainable or they can't talk to them or, they just get psyched out when they see them. But, for her and other people too to reach out to like Sunny or like people from the whosoever's and for them to respond. Yeah. It's like, dude, like
Sunny in particular is very like you'll see him look for like the oddball kid.
Yeah.
Like, he's wild like that, dude. I remember seeing him like he like there'll be a lot of people and he'll be like, yeah, like, oh, for sure, and then he'll like beeline it to like some kid over there and then like sit next to him and like talk to him for a long time. And I remember seeing his heart like that. It was really wild, really blew me away to see him that way. So much to the point where I thought, man, like that's very special, like very, very one of a kind. He seems like to gravitate towards like the people that aren't just like the cool kid or whatever, he's like very, I've tripped out on that about him and his wife, really. Yeah. They both, I remember, had sort of that trait. There's something I want to say about, you mentioned, what was the girl's name from Canada, you said?
Canada, yeah.
Oh, you don't have to say her name. Yeah. The girl from Canada, because when I got saved and received like a calling in my life, even was set free from, the enslavement of fornication and pornography. And one of the things I dealt with for a long time was bulimia as well, which is a rare thing for a dude to struggle with. But it was a very enslaving thing for a majority of my life. And so one of the things that wasn't taken from me is a little cloud of depression, bro, that never fully goes away. And I say that because I was really drawn to when you were talking about this girl's story who was helping all these kids while simultaneously dealing with that stuff. And I just want to say this because there's a possibility that even to the degree of the involvement with the people that are other people that are healing kids and helping and getting to know Ryan and getting to know people and getting involved with them, there's a possibility that even yet still it's not as dissolved as she would like it to be. And the reason why I say that is because not just her, but many others that might be in those shoes. And I want to say this because of what God's taught me through it is I've never been fully delivered from that, bro. Like, if I'm just being transparent and honest. But what God has done is he's taught me to take my eyes off of myself and really, really learn to consider others and put my eyes on what, like, the Lord most of all, and praying for others and lifting them up, because it really blessed my heart when I heard Paul say, I asked for you to take this thorn from me 3 times and you didn't. And I realized that your grace is sufficient for me. That some of his servants will carry certain things. It doesn't mean that they have to fall into them, but they will carry them through their life. Something really beautiful happened the other day, because I always follow what Ryan's up to. Yeah. I don't stay very connected with him, not because I love Ryan, dude, honestly. And every time I see him, he gives me love, and it's good to see him, dude. But he's so busy, bro. Like, there's just so many people, and there's always new people coming into his world, people that really need him, and God's doing amazing work. And then he's a father and a husband, and that's just crazy, bro. I mean, being a father, being a father
dude, and, a lot of work.
And a husband. It's hard to also be like a friend to an acquaintance,
Yeah.
right? Like to be like like answering their texts or like talking with them when they're not in your sphere. But I saw him make a post that suggested something to the degree of feeling hopeless at times. Like it was like like a dope photo of him taken. He was kind of like staring off, and
Yeah.
he said something in there about like feeling like you're not like less of worth or something to that degree of like, and it excited me, bro. It excited me not because I want him to struggle, or not just because, oh, I'm not the only one, but because there's a level of maturity that comes when a Christian realizes that it's not him. Like, it's not that he's dope. It's that Jesus Christ is real and he loves people, and Ryan is very much in the same race that everybody's in. That we need Christ so badly, and that we all feel at times that, like, is this really working? Is God really doing something? I mean, we have these conversations all the time where, is it like, am I doing everything, Lord, or have I come to the place where it's like it's rolling, or is it I feel like I'm falling short? And I carry those things, bro. Long drives home, no music on, a lot of my thoughts, dude, a lot of my discouragements, feeling like I'm not what I could be or should be, or feeling like an inadequate husband, inadequate father, inadequate worker, inadequate servant of the Lord, all those ways, and but it allows me to really brother up with people when they're in those places where they're like, I see the look on their face and there's a weariness, and they're like, dude, am I treading for no reason right now, dude? Is there nothing coming from this right now? And I'm like, nah, bro, like, you're in company. Like, let me tell you a little bit about this, and there's something beautiful about that. So I just want to say to that lady that, like, even, I'm not saying directly to her, types like her, like, even if it still hasn't fully gone, living with that doesn't have to be like the same as like a person living with a drug addiction or something, like, I'm still doing drugs, I'm still on meth or something. Not to say that God's grace isn't extended to them as well, but Paul dealt with depression, and the Bible says that Jesus was a man of sorrows. And I don't think it's so far off for Christians to be carrying that weight in life. I don't think that it means that you're not doing it right. Because if Jesus was dealing with that, nobody did it right, more right than Christ, right?
Yeah, for
and
sure.
Paul too. He's runner up, not close to Christ, but you know what I'm saying. So just encouragement to anybody out there who is still carrying things that they're pretending isn't there.
Yeah, no, that ministers to me, because sometimes we put on the smile, man. And even when we're by ourselves, when no one's looking, we tell ourselves, like, we're either honest with ourselves and saying, man, there's something missing sometimes. You could be walking with the Lord and be like, still feeling like that lack of just fulfillment. Not that. And there is something there in that statement that you have to realize that Jesus is fulfilling. But there's times you have to be honest with him too.
Yeah.
Of like, Lord, I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling like I'm not good enough. I'm feeling like what you have me in isn't good enough. And I don't know if it's in every person, but I know it's in me, that there's times when I feel like that, where I feel like, because I start to calculate, well, if just this was different in my life, then maybe things would be good. And then as soon as like I start to think that way, I realize, oh, not really. And so then I'm walking in this realization of there is an emptiness sometimes, just to be plain and honest. And I know the Lord uses that in my life. I know he uses that to draw me close to him, to make me realize, to open my eyes, to see who he is and how powerful he is. It doesn't matter how much we get caught up in ministry, how many amazing things we can be a part of. We have to come back to him, I think. And I think that's something that And there's also too the medical side of depression too.
Absolutely, I don't
you know?
want to
Yeah.
soften the legitimacy of an issue that could be helped, right?
Right.
Like when someone needs to reach out and someone needs to be honest and say like, I'm in a dark place right now and I need help. You know, I'm not belittling that. Sometimes this coming
Yeah.
from a Pentecostal background, there's a lot of pressure. Sometimes like, dude, Jesus should heal this. You know, Jesus should heal this. If you're really believing, let Jesus heal it only, you know. And not to say that Jesus can't, and he does, but Paul went to Luke, who was his physician, and he was like, hey, bandage me up. Like, Paul wasn't like, oh, no, I don't need Luke. I'll just
Yeah.
pray, you know. Like, he understood, you know, he understood. So, like, it's okay to, like, say, like, hey, something's wrong here, or, like, you know, and I don't want people to feel self-conscious because they're on a medication or something. And I also don't want to say that just because someone is on the medication that they can't be delivered from it at some point, that God can't set them free. And, you know, I'm not putting anything in a box. I'm not saying I'm with these people, against those people, or any of that stuff. But I do want to make sure that I do address that sometimes a person is on the verge of shooting themselves or jumping off somewhere, you know, permanently putting themselves to sleep. And they need to tell somebody,
Yeah.
you know, I want to say that, but I also want to say to those that are like, man, Lord, I've been walking with you a long time. What's up? Like, this should be gone. That you're not alone. You're in company with Christ, myself, others that you know. Like, I could see it. I could see the weight sometimes on Ryan, you know. And that doesn't mean that what he's doing isn't legit. Like, bro, you're like Christ. You're like John the Baptist. You're like the weeping prophet. You're like so many biblical characters, you know. I'm kind of curious, bro, like, because you're going to be in my mind a lot, you know. Because when I sit down with people at this table, bro, just to let you know that, like, this, it's not really an interview. It's like we sit down and talk. Like, that's what we do here. Like, it's a conversation, and it's getting to know people in a way that, for whatever reason, the vibe created at this table, in this lighting and in this place, just allows it to feel like, you know, that the people sitting here care about you. And even if this wasn't recorded, the conversation matters more than the recording of the conversation. I say that all the time. Like, this conversation means more to me than putting it out, you know, and
sure,
recording it. So, married, bro, I think one of the most glorious accomplishments, one of the most difficult trials. What is marriage like? What does that look like for you? Is that you feel like your wife's blessed at what God's done? Is she in the fight? You know, and I want to preface this by saying we have experienced both of those things ourselves. You know, like my wife, you're talking about years of like not happy, like looking me out. It's not what I wanted.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just curious. So like when, you know, maybe for others that might feel like they're alone, or maybe just what's your story, dude?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, so I got married pretty young, man. You know, started dating my wife at 16. We got married at 21. And for me, dude, just being a guy, our anniversary, I just kept it the same, bro. I was like, you know what, let's get married on our dating anniversary so I don't got to remember two things.
Nice. Yep.
I didn't say that, but that's how I planned it.
I was like, this dude's gangster.
So, yeah, dude, we got married young, 21, and yeah, going through it, bro, for sure. Just kind of being young and, you know, trying to figure out this whole marriage thing. But even for me, man, before, like, we got married, I think when I hit, like, 17, 18, man, just kind of dealing with what I dealt with at a young age, I came to the realization where I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to be dating you, I'm going to be dating you intentionally, because I started taking my walk with Christ more
That's your wife,
intentional.
yeah. That's yeah.
And I was like, all right, so we're dating with intentions. Like, just so you know, I wouldn't be with you if I didn't have the intentions of marrying you, is what I told her. And then, you know, we still stuck together and got married at 21. But now, dude, you know, we have a kid growing up, and, you know, just kind of like you go through seasons, bro, where it's like, for me as a husband and a leader, there's some times, dude, you know, you just get caught up kind of like in the routine of things. I feel like it could happen. And it's just coming to the realization where it's like, dude, like whatever your wife does, and now with my kid, whatever your kid does, like that reflects on me as a leader in my house. So for me, dude, I'm like, man, like I got to make sure that I'm really pouring into my wife and my kid, and and that I'm being that representation of Christ that they need in their life, so that way they can, kind of help, like, just be the example of what they need to do too, like as far as like reading the Bible, waking up early, praying, just my personal walk. And I feel like right now I'm at a point where it's like, okay, like I'm really taking this up now that I have a kid, and I'm like, dude, like, I mean, it's crazy, man. Like when you have a kid and like just seeing the sinful nature, like of them not even being able to talk, but they're like giving attitude and, hitting you.
Faking it. And,
yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And for me, like the other day, man, I was driving home and I was literally looking on YouTube, like, how do you discipline like your kid when he can't talk, bro? I'm like, I don't want to like hit him, because then he's gonna think like, okay, cool, I'm gonna hit all the homies then if they're doing something I don't want, or I'm gonna hit mom and dad because they hit me. So I'm just like,
there's no communication before they
exactly,
talk. You're right.
Bro.
Yeah.
So like, I'm going through all these different things, and everybody has their own opinion on what you should do, what you shouldn't do.
Oh my gosh, dude.
And like, I just came to the point where God was like, all right, he's a kid, bro. Like, like he's gonna have to learn when he like has the cognitive ability to be able to understand, like okay, like how to speak words. I could explain this to you.
Yeah.
Then that's when you start like really instilling like those morals and how you want them to be as a person. But right now I'm at the point where it's like, all right, you just gotta you gotta be stern. You're like, no, don't do that. They could understand that.
That's funny,
but it's easy for me to just get caught up in like, dang, dude, like, am I being a good father because like homie's over here hitting his mom and she's like telling me, hey, your son just hit me today, and I'm like, dang, what do I do? Like,
Wow.
But that's where I'm at right now. But I mean, just to kind of answer your question, dude, just going throughout, from when we were 21 till now, 30, those 9 years, bro, there's definitely been like ups and downs. There's been times where, I haven't necessarily like been the leader. I think like the first 2 years of marriage for me, it's like we started off strong, right? But then we're getting to know each other and everything. And I felt like the beginning of our marriage, we were like really focused on each other rather than focused on pursuing Christ together with each other.
Sure.
So I feel like those 2 years I really backed off, dude. Like, I mean, I grew up playing in the worship team, and then for those 2 years I didn't play in the worship team. And those 2 years is kind of the time when I was coming to Golden Springs, dude. Like I was like, newly married. I was coming on Friday nights, coming on Sundays. And then there was a point in our marriage where I was like, dude, like, I feel like I'm not like doing what I need to be doing right now as a husband. Like,
I've been there.
We're like pursuing each other, but we're not pursuing Christ with each other. So that's when I really just started going hardcore on Sundays. I'd bring the wife. We'd come to church. We'd learn. And then that's when I was really like, okay, you know what? I want to start doing this worship thing again. God was just putting that on my heart. And that's when I sent that email to Sam when I was talking about it in the beginning. And I never got a response, though. So I was like, you know what? Maybe that's just God telling me I'm not ready yet. Right? So I was like, maybe I'm just not ready. I'm just not even going to send another email. I'm not going to bug. I'm just going to leave it as it is.
I'll call Sammy right now, dude. Shout out, Sammy. I love you, brother.
Shout out, Sammy. Love you,
No,
dude.
but like, God really did a work too, because I think even like the worship game from when I was playing, dude, this is like way different, bro.
Sure.
So like God opened up the doors for me to just play for like a bunch of other churches, bro. So like I got experience just playing at different Calvaries, man. Like, learning how to play with like the click, learning how to play with click and track, learning how to play with like.
How do you feel about click?
I'm solid now with it,
You
bro.
like
At
it?
first, I didn't really care for it because it was a
Sure.
bit difficult.
Especially for a drummer, because it's forcing you, and
Yeah.
usually the drummer's forcing the band,
Dude,
It's
but you know what? I came to the realization it's all like the click that you pick. Like sometimes like I just like switch up the rhythm of it where it makes sense for me, because I'm like, I'm the one who's gonna be carrying this and listening to it. So as long as it sounds like it's a part of the beat, dude, like I'm down with it.
Nice.
So-
now let me ask you this:
Yeah.
are you fluid in speaking Nick? Like, can you understand it? Can you understand everything? Because Nick speaks in riddles sometimes,
Yeah,
right? Have you experienced this at
for
all?
sure.
Because Nick will talk to you in like illustrations only, and be like, "I want you to think about like."
He's funny, dude.
He's
We were just
funny.
talking about this the other day too. But yeah, dude. Yeah, I could definitely speak Nick.
Okay,
That's good.
We've
Shout out
developed
Nick,
we've
dude.
developed that bond.
Nice.
I'm in a. I was once in a. Not too long ago, dude. I was in like a hip hop group with Nick.
Oh, okay.
He used to rap, dude. You could
Did
corner,
he?
you could
Dude,
corner
I'm
him
about to
on,
Google it.
you could corner him on this, dude. Max is over there shaking his head because Max is embarrassed of that era
Oh,
of our
shoot.
hip hop, dude. But yeah, I was in like a hip hop group with Nick, dude. We used to make rap
Do
together.
you guys have like a name or anything, or? I'm curious on the name, bro.
Look at. Yeah, I'll send you everything. I'll send you everything, bro.
He said not on the air though.
No, yeah, Vision by Dreamers, bro. Vision by Dreamers. People know what's up. We did some live stuff on this podcast.
Oh, okay. Sick.
Yeah, they do actually.
So we've done that. Like we've had Sammy on this podcast.
Okay.
Nick's been on multiple times.
Yeah.
Nick, we have a very close relationship with Nick. That's why we can joke like that.
Yeah.
Dude. So shout out Nick, dude. We freaking love you, man. But yeah, Nick would be speaking in riddles. He's like Yoda, you know, like he'd be like when we were making music together. He'd be like, I want right now. It feels like a ham sandwich, but I want it to be more like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You know what I mean, dude? And I'll be all.
We love you, Nick. It's all love. I want you to know that, Nick.
Yeah, no, dude.
funny,
I'm just joking, dude. I honestly, I'm close. I call him all the time, dude. I send him all my. Every time I draw something, I send him because
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, he's an
Yeah, he's a
amazing
sick
artist. He's
artist,
an
yeah.
amazing artist, bro. He's a dope rapper too. You'll be tripped out, dude. Check him out, dude. Hit him up. Be like, hey, dude, I heard you rap. Let me hear your
I'm gonna start
bars.
calling
dude.
him MC Nick.
Dude, you should corner him, bro. You should be like, hey, dude, let me hear some of your bars. Spit me one of your bars. He will too, because Nick's crazy like that. Did you get to see his dancing video, dude?
Oh, no, you know what? I didn't. I heard a lot of people giving him trash about it, but I did not.
Because
see
did.
it.
Did
Did he delete it?
No.
Nah.
Yeah, he
You
went
can
all
go
out.
back
though.
and check it out. It was
Yeah,
for his
he-
anniversary, right?
Yeah, he went all out,
He's
for
sick
sure.
like that, though, bro. He has no embarrassment whatsoever.
Yeah.
He's just, he's crazy, bro.
That's
He
dope,
could get
bro.
away with it. He can.
He's freaking nuts. Dude.
Well, so
I freaking love
I was
Nick.
gonna ask you, man, how did we get to
Nick.
this? Oh, because we were talking
Worship,
about
yeah.
marriage.
We were talking about
and-
marriage,
Yeah,
and then,
yeah.
the first
And
2
your kid.
years, just kind of being about each other. We still loved Christ.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't doing anything wrong, but we were just, well, actually, we were doing things wrong because we weren't following Christ
Mm-hmm.
together. We were kind of just stuck on like this new love, marriage type of relationship thing, and just kind of like figuring each other out, dude. Even going back to that, man, like we never took marriage counseling or anything. Like we were friends, and then we got married. But I would definitely recommend for people who are like young in the faith, you know, to get that marriage counseling, because that definitely helps like put your marriage on a biblical scope, and then you could start building on that solid foundation as you're like learning, you know, this new thing, because you're like doing life together now. You're so used to being selfish and, you know, doing whatever you want to do on your own time. So like when those two worlds come together, it could be like kind of like a, you know, awakening. You're like, wait, I can't do this, and wait, like, you know, you don't like when I do that. Like I never knew. So it's
Yeah.
definitely good, and
That's so
will
true.
definitely help both of you be grounded and not to get at each other's throats for sure. You know, when you're doing something that's maybe not something to the other person's liking. But yeah, I would definitely recommend marriage counseling.
Now, with that, did you picture yourself being in ministry?
I didn't, dude.
Because
No.
you're full time ministry.
And now I am, yeah.
That's
I
wild.
And-
didn't, bro. That's a funny story
Uh-huh.
too, because like I was working at a warehouse. I was working for the Costco distribution center for like a cool 7 years, bro.
Shout out Costco with
There
those
we go.
cheesecakes.
Shout out to Costco, bro. So I'm working at the warehouse, right?
Uh-huh.
So like my pops, he grew up. I grew up seeing him go to work every day. He worked at Costco. He worked at the store location, and then I got a job at the warehouse where it's like the depot. It's more like grungy and rugged, you know.
Okay.
So like I started working there, dude, and then I was just working my way up in the management scheme of things. And you know, I became a supervisor. Then I started doing like all of the safety trainings, the new hire stuff. And then like for me, I feel like if I would have been there longer, bro, I would have worked my way up like into a management role. And I was cool with that. I was like, you know what, I'm making good money. Been
Yeah,
with the
Costco
company.
pays. Yeah.
And I was comfortable, bro. So like you guys know Ivan. Ivan was working for the Hustos, you know, doing the warehouse and going on trips with Ryan. And he was just telling me like, hey, bro, there's this opportunity that might come up, just kind of putting it on my radar. And then when they reached out to me, seeing if I wanted to come and fill in when he was stepping out, I was not ready, bro. I was like, you know what? I'm comfortable. I'm good. I don't think God wants this for me, but it was more like me. Like, I don't want this for me, you know, because I was like, I'm going to be working for ministry. I know it probably doesn't pay well. And I'm just thinking about all this stuff in the back end. And I just had like all these goals for myself in this company because I was already so invested. And then like maybe like 4 or 6 months pass by, and then another opportunity opens up. They already filled that role. Ivan had a replacement. I recommended a homie to them, and who still works with us today, Daniel. I was like, yeah, dude, like, you know, he's good, he's solid, he's a young guy, he loves the Lord, and he ended up filling that spot. But then some of the leadership within the movement, they started like, God was calling them out of the ministry to do other things. And there was like a big need for somebody to kind of fill that gap. And, I prayed about it. I'm like, okay, God, like there's a second opportunity. They're reaching out to me again. I was like, you either really want me to be here or these people just really want me to be here. Whatever it is, like something's happening and I need to be obedient. So I just prayed about it. I was like, God, if you want me to be here, you're going to open the doors and it's going to feel organic. And the whole pay cut thing, like it's going to work itself out. And then, I end up coming, having an interview and things just work out, dude. And like God started opening up the doors for me to like gig at other churches because at that time I'm not playing at Golden Springs because that email never got read, right? So he's opening up these doors, bro. He's opening up these doors. I'm playing at other places. I'm getting like blessed when I'm playing at these places. And that kind of filled like that void like of that financial gap, which was really cool because at that time it was like needed. My wife wasn't working. It was just me.
Oh, tough. Yeah.
Well, she was working, but it was like she wasn't making a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, and at that time, I was actually paying for her to go to school. She does cosmetology, so she was going to school and stuff. So she was learning her craft. So it was a pretty rough season, dude. And finally she ends up graduating. She was like going over here in Pasadena. She worked at a high end salon. Got like really good teaching, dude, from like a friend of hers who she ended up getting really close with. And he's really cool, man. He helped her out in the hair industry and taught her everything she knows and still helps her out to this day. She'll call him if she like messes up or something. And he's like, I got you.
I'm curious real quick.
Yeah.
Your wife, is her name Karen Lisette?
Yeah.
Because my wife's name is Lisette.
Is it really?
Yeah. So I would see it on her Instagram tag. I was like,
dude,
that's the same name.
Yeah.
Anyway, just curious.
Yeah, Karen Lisette, bro. So, yeah, she does her hair thing. She graduates, and then she ends up working, right? She gets a job.
Keep
doing
talking.
hair.
I got some stuff going on.
You're good. So basically, yeah, dude, she gets that job, and then I end up working for the Whosoevers, and yeah, it's just been like I think like 4.5 years or something like that, maybe that I've been solidly working for the Whosoevers. So I never thought I was going to be doing ministry, bro. For me, I'm like, nah, it's not for me. I don't see myself doing it. But just going back, dude, even to like God's faithfulness when I was going to that Pentecostal church, I would go to like youth camps, youth conventions and things. And multiple times, dude, I just got like just words spoken over my life that God was going to use me to impact like the next generation.
Do
know what I mean?
do you miss? Okay, because I know, like obviously once you get in like a very solid Bible teaching church, your focus goes back to that, and that's what you're focused on. And it can be like you can meet people that are very like, oh yeah, like, that's before. Now that you know. But I will say this, bro, and this coming from I'm Calvary. I was raised in Calvary, right? But there have been people who have come alongside me in times of trial that were from more charismatic background or whatever. And there was a love and a really like an investment of someone's time in me from some people I've met that are more charismatic background. Do you ever miss like, or you think about some of the people and you're like, man, that was solid. Like I do miss that about where I came from or whatever. Do you deal with any of that or no?
Not necessarily. I do keep in contact with a lot of like, good solid people in the faith, dude, like even from like Pentecostal churches. Dude, like it's wild, man. Just being on the road, you meet a lot of people who are from different denominations, but like you just see their heart, dude, and how on fire they are for God. And you just see their testimony, bro. And you're like, dang, I can't believe like, this person's a Catholic, or I can't believe this person's like a Lutheran.